Okay, y'all wanted a video? Here it is. Cleaned up only a tiny bit for y'all, but it's not how clean it is that matters. It's going to be the technique. So the tools that I use are all from Hobby Lobby. The first one is going to be the spade tool. You're going to have to bear with the autofocusing and all this. It has another side. I don't use this side. The next one is this tool. I've had these tools for about 10 years. Once you get used to something, that's pretty much where you're going to use. And when I started my business about 10 years ago, that's what I got. So that's what I use. This is pretty important. This is what I scoop a lot of the wax with. And when I need to move something, these two are what I'll use for the gum lines. This one I've dulled up a little bit. This a little bit sharper, but it's dulled over the years too. You're going to want to take a rubber wheel and dull both of them because there's not really a purpose to have a super sharp one. We got a PK. Couldn't tell you the sizes, but one's pretty thin and one is a little bit thicker on that side. Lighter, knife. We got a buffalo alcohol torch, and then the last thing that we'll need is a glass syringe. These I get from Benco, but in the past I have bought them from Hobby Lobby. They just have to be borosilicate glass. So one thing a lot of people will do is they'll suck up wax up in here. So pretty much when you start using these, they can take a lot of heat. It's the same type of glass that people use for glass blowing. But any sort of shock will break it, and eventually the tips break off of these. So I don't use Bunsen burners. A lot of people I know do. If you use this on a Bunsen burner, it's a lot of rotating and moving around. I've gotten used to doing an alcohol torch, and it's whatever you're the most comfortable with. So I'm constantly cleaning this off. It is hot, but soon enough you won't feel anything. Okay, and our goal here, we just got a wax pot. I have sticky wax and then denture setup wax, and this is an inductive heater. I've had the Renfort ones, and this one is just from, I think, Amazon. One's broken, but it's less than 60 bucks. So this is a setup I have. It's for an immediate. It was class 3. We're kind of a tight VDO here, so yeah, and the alcohol torches will do that. So you don't ever want to point them towards anything flammable or walk away from them. I've had to trim these a lot. There's no alveoplasty being done on this case, so we want the plane to be flat on these. I don't do curve of spee or anything. It's just not really feasible. You can do it if someone asks for it, but really just flat plane occlusion with 15-degree teeth is going to be your best bet. And, you know, we wouldn't have any room for a curve of spee here just because of the tight VDO. It was class 3, so these anteriors, I have them tilted back a little bit to get them end to end, and the anteriors on the upper are going to be tilted a little bit forward. I try to avoid it, but this person's getting all new teeth, so, you know, want them to feel good about it. But if you have to go too far, you got to keep them in class 3 because it won't look good. So we're going to be festooning. I like this thing, which is probably why I don't use an alcohol torch. And the first thing we're going to do is we want to seal everything real nice on there. We don't want the teeth moving around. These inductive heaters are really cool, or hot, but I'm a fan. They'll allow you to do about 3 clicks, and anything metal will heat up in it. Like, for example, if you put your finger, it won't heat up, which means things like the PK you have to hold in a certain direction because it's not quite enough metal. Okay, so we got that. What I'm going to do is always draw on. So if you had a base plate, you're going to take off the base plate at this step, and you want to make sure that you put Vaseline all around the border. So that way you can wax up to the model, and you can get it off pretty easy. So, you know, it's not going to be the fanciest video. My hands are probably going to be in the way a lot of the times, but we're going to mark the bottom of the sulcus. We're not necessarily going to wax up exactly to there, and we might be further or short of it. Here on this retromolar pad, this was an indentation of the tray, so I'm not going to go up there. Drawing everything, it just makes everybody's life easier, because as soon as you get your wax on there, it seems like it'd be straightforward, but it's not. You know, if you have a base plate, you should have already drawn on it, so your base plate is your gauge. So we're going to heat this up. Let me see if I can't move this. So what we're doing, we're heating up the torch. Right, so I'm going to leave it over here, but if you see my hand like that, what I'm doing is I'm just slowly gliding the syringe, and I'm twisting it over the torch. If you hold it too high, you'll get like black material on the outside. It gets in your wax up. If you hold it down here, you're going to get from the wick black material. So you kind of find a good place to hold it around where the hole is. Okay, and we suck up some wax. This is the one time where using a torch might be a little bit better, because I really like everything clean. And you'll see there's like a tension on the wax dropper. Let's see, I'm trying to figure out at the very tip there. Once that tension breaks, you're ready to do what I call like the human printing technique. Yeah, so this isn't gonna be the greatest video, but the parts that are important, I'm gonna make sure that I get them on there. So the wax has to be hot on an immediate. You have to bear with the focusing also, because on an immediate especially, you want to seal to the model. When we're processing, we can't have plaster and stuff getting up there. And then say somebody, the processing guy, he will take an air hose to dry it off. And if there's a gap in there, the air hose can get underneath, and it just isn't good. It can move things, and most of the time it probably will be fine, but that one time is going to be your rush case. So we use gravity to hold things in, kind of like pocket. So I'm going to switch this other side. When you see my hand up here, I'm putting it in the alcohol torch flame. When I start doing the real festooning, I'll adjust the camera. But what we're doing is we're taking hot wax and we're sealing real good in there. So if your wax up, when you were doing the wax up, if it wasn't hot enough and your wax has like these lighter kind of white colors in it, like there's air bubbles trapped in, you got to use a tool heated up and pop all those bubbles, because for the carving steps later, that aerated wax is going to cause issues. So you'll heat something like this and you'll go in all the teeth, and just do it from the facial, because what we're trying to do is, this is a functional thing, but it's going to be what the patient sees, and it's just got to look nice. So having different colors also will set expectations of like characterization and all that. So we want everything to be one color for the wax. And then one thing to note, in the wax pot, the dye drops out of the wax. So wax that's been in a wax pot for a day or two, is a different color than fresh wax that you just put in there, which isn't that big of a deal, but I've been using this wax for probably 15 years. It's MDC base plate wax. It's the medium. Same company makes polycryl, and I know its translucency, so I can tell how thick something is. So right now we're just going over this area. Really what this is, if you can't see it, I'm going to take my tool in there because I didn't melt it enough. There's almost like a tension, like water tension with this. So when you're trying to put it on the stone at first, or even a base plate, it's going to fight you. It wants to run all the way around. And in order to thicken this up, you need to have a platform to put this all on. Try and keep my hands out of the way, but this way y'all can see. Immediates are much harder to wax up because they're never going to look like a final denture where there's been time for resorption, there's more room there. We're fighting the tissue, the gum lines, and we need to maintain a thickness for this. So now I got that on there. You got to go real quick on the teeth, or you're gonna melt the teeth and they're gonna bubble up. So now that I got this on here, I'm gonna go ahead. Probably can't see it, but in between right here, there's like kind of air gaps. It may seem a little bit OCD, but it definitely makes it easier to seal everything. This part. And for gauging for thickness, it's kind of hard to see here, but on the immediates, they're always going to be puffed out. We don't have a lot of room to do our festooning. I'll festoon this how I would a final, but a lot of that I'm going to do during finishing with a burr, because it's just extra work. If it's too thin, now you have to add to it, and it actually takes less time to take something away than add to it. But ideally, we want our wax ups to be as spot on as we can get them. Okay, I'm blowing on this as I'm doing it. That's why I call it the human printer. Just printing it on. It's not the end of the world if it's too thick. You don't want to overwork stuff. Just get it on there and then you can take it off after. Yeah, this one looked like the teeth were in pretty bad shape before I took them off just by looking at them on the model. So I don't know if it's inflammation or tuberosities, but there's a lot of bone right here. So we're going to thicken it up. And that's why it's setting people's expectations for immediates. Like, we got to get those bad teeth out. We got to let things heal up, and then get a nicer denture. If there is flapping, taking a bunch of bone down, it's hard to convey that to the lab. That's just going to be a relationship thing. So I'm not worrying too much because I'm going to come back and add a little bit. We're just trying to get a layer on here. These alcohol torches can be a little bit of a problem if they get any wax blocking them. And then you got to make sure the lid's on there tight because air escaping, it's like trying to run a car that's got a leak. I see some little black dots from the part of the flame that has the uncombusted material in it. If this was a final, I would pick that all out. On immediates, it doesn't matter. As for thickness on these, the base plate material is 1.4 millimeters thick. I think that's too thin. I would err towards 2 millimeters, and then you'll start to learn. I don't really measure a lot of things anymore because it's not feasible, but the wax that you're using, and then also the acrylic after you process, you'll just be able to tell by the color. If it's too thin, it needs to be added to. So if you watch someone finishing, you'll see them holding the denture up to the light. Okay, so we're giving an extra pass on the bony part just at the junction of where their teeth were before. Because I can still see, you won't be able to see it, but I can still see stone color coming up through here. Eventually these, from not heating it up enough, it'll kind of block back here. So I actually encourage people to use a propane or Bunsen burner. I just don't like them. Especially with employees, they get left on. I just find them being more of a hazard than the alcohol torches, but these things are definitely dangerous too. I think they say you should be wearing all cotton clothing dealing with this stuff. And if there's a rule for it, it means something's happened before. Just getting out the So all we're doing is thickening it up. You can do this step with sheets of wax, but the issue with the sheets of wax is when we do this next carving step, it's going to introduce all these like air inclusions, or it won't introduce, they'll already be there. And when you're doing the Bunsen, the alcohol torch, you'll be finishing it, and you'll be chasing bubbles. Bubbles will pop up. You got to pop them with the PK, and it's just much easier, and it all comes out nicer. The nicer it looks, the more likely your doctor, the patient, the owner of the lab is going to see it and go, okay, looks good, let's go ahead with it. There's weird little bubbles and stuff in them. You know, it's going to be like a border checkpoint. You're going to be pulled aside for more inspection, because, you know, things just got to look right. They don't got to just look right, they got to be right, but hopefully you know what I mean. Okay, we're getting to the thickness. Right now I'm just kind of going over all of this. Okay, so now if these torches ever start acting weird, what you do is you take this off. This thing's really hot right now, but your hands will eventually toughen up. And then you can twist this thing. And by twisting it, you can get more of the wick to come out there. We still have plenty of alcohol. Really, I should have put out these embers, but as long as we're not making an accident. Okay, and then you can turn these over. Basically what you want to do is cover that, and then by squeezing it, you'll see that the wick gets wet. So if you ever have these and they're not working very well, a lot of times that's why. We get much better flame. Okay, and then this is real common. They'll get blocked. If they get blocked and you can't unblock them, I've tried with torches. You know, you squeeze it and you heard that, then it unblocked itself. If you can't do it, it's time for a new alcohol torch. And these things have marbles in the bottom of them. For years, I didn't know what the marbles were for. It's actually pretty surprising, but not at the same time. So leave a comment if you know what the marbles in these are for. Okay. Super important not to burn the teeth. Oh, sorry guys. But I'm just smoothing everything out. It's kind of an impromptu video for the Redditors. Okay. I like the spade tool for doing this. This little bowl guy has this other side. This is good for the gum lines too. But because the wax is still soft, this one's a little blunt. It risks pushing my teeth away. So we're going to make an initial pass. We're not going to try and do anything nice. We're excavating. How far can we expose the gum line? If you have a base plate, that's great. Take it to the base plate. You don't want to leave the little lip of the tooth, but for the PK step later, it will actually be fine. But on immediate, that's a really common place that they break. So if you ever see immediates, they look puffy, the teeth are short, it's just the way it has to be. Get like right here. I think I can see some of the model coming through. Now, one of the option is you're not going to remember to do it, but if you see one area that's troublesome and you kind of remember taking the teeth off the model, you might be able to take some more model off during processing. But like I said, the chances of you remembering are pretty slim. So you gotta like write a note, like the guy from Memento, get it tattooed. Okay, we're excavating, going a little bit further each time. And then, so my motion for doing it, I use these fingers, get stability. Right here I can see something shining through. Okay, you want to do these sides right here because when you process any denture, the teeth will fall out if there's nothing for it to grab on this side. Same with these ones. And the issue with these ones is they all look so similar. Of all the teeth in the mouth, they look the most similar to fall. So when they fall out of the flask, it's like putting a puzzle back together. You gotta put it in one by one by one, and just see which one. It's kind of like Cinderella's slipper. It feels right when it's in the spot, but sometimes you'll glue them in the wrong spot, and you'll notice after process it doesn't look good because the rounded side on the mesial will be opposite. So now we're going to go all the way around. I do my wax rims like this too, where I build them up a lot and take them down. It's actually much faster. It seems like a lot of work, but it's way faster. As long as you keep moving. Hold things a little bit different than I normally would, but a lot of this stuff, you're going to feel that there's muscle in your hand right here. It's normal if it hurts. It doesn't hurt me anymore, but you'll use a lot of muscles that you've never used your entire life doing this stuff. Okay, so I'm just going around. Here's where I said that tray made an indentation, so we're taking it out there. Immediates are much harder than finals. Okay, I like to keep everything clean, so go over this. You guys are gonna have to use your imagination if autofocus works weird, but I'm taking it sideways like this, and I'm just scraping excess wax off the teeth. I know I said I was going to move the camera, but I don't feel like there's a really good place to put it. Okay. Let's get stuff out of there. Here's where I'll use my Buffalo dental knife. Because it's kind of like proud in that area. I'm flicking away any excess wax for the later steps. Okay, now we're going to go back to the gum line again. We're going to go as far as we can. I see we're already at the bottom of that tooth there. Real smooth motions. It should be symmetrical. All the gum lines should match. you won't be able to match them a lot of times though. So it's kind of like do your best or pick a lowest common denominator, because it may look weird if one is down, but it also might be the better option. Okay. So what ended up happening is I can see the model through there. So a lot of times we're adding back wax. We took off too much, and then yeah, this alcohol torch works way better now. Okay, sake for cleanliness, I'm gonna get at these little torch spots. You're gonna have a lot of weird stuff on your teeth. What I found I like is I use these Robinson brushes. A lot of people call them like a goat hair. We'll use a hand piece. First though, it comes off easier if you can. You have to be so careful though, using this torch on the teeth. Like you're just giving it slight. I use it on the edge of the table, and then just by going over it, it gets it really clean. It pushes the wax away. You can't be having a film of wax on these when you're processing it. Like a little bit of wax is fine, but really just try and get it all off. Okay. Okay, here's like the festooning magic though. So we're gonna use this little bowl. It's actually flat. It's not really a bowl, but the whole main thing of it is it's circular. So this is the part that I want to make sure that y'all can see well, because we're gonna scoop. Scoop, 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 scoop. Let's leave the canine eminences. Emini. I'm not sure how you would say that. The plural. So we're pretty close here. On a final, you would have so much room here. You want to scoop it out real good, and it just starts to come together and look very nice. And then in these interproximals, the teeth shouldn't be puffy there, because it's the pressure of the root on the gums which is going to be pushing them out. So we want to simulate that. Okay, and then I don't do just a straight line. I come back, and it's like an arrow here. We come up and under these guys. I would normally do this way more, but we're pretty constrained for space right here. You know, people always want their immediates thinner, but then they also want you to pay for them when they break. So we got to meet halfway. So you can see I'm just scooping out. It doesn't really have to look that nice. We come back with the torch later, and then but I can see the stone shining through my wax, which lets me know that it's already we're pushing it already. But I'm gonna go with it so y'all can at least see the technique. Okay. In order to do this right, you got to make sure your torch is in good condition, or just doing the wick thing. It's got to have enough alcohol. The wick's got to be sitting in the alcohol. It's got to be tightened down, and the hole shouldn't be blocked. Okay, so these are still a little puffy. Same here, but I can see the wax coming, the stone coming through the wax. So let's go for as much as we can. Can kind of cheat by working on it up here. It'll give us the effect. Yeah, if we don't take it out in between the teeth, it looks like they have gum disease. And here I'm just trying to, it's almost like, anyone's familiar with computers and curves and stuff, you can like divide a curve in two and in two and in two. I do that with the eminence, where it'll be like very, it'll be sticking out real rounded because we left the eminence, but we don't really want to take it down and leave it flat. We want to take it down, and it's kind of hard to explain, but almost like a smoothing, like a sandpapering motion, not a digging motion after you get to a certain point. And under these, if there's a sharp ledge on them, I want to break that ledge in half and then break this, and come here and break that. Yeah, this is not the best example case just because of the bone. You have so much more room to play on these finals. I'm picking out from the anatomy, just any wax that's gotten in there before. Okay. Do another pass on the gum line. You don't want to go for broke on the first pass. And my technique is I pull the wax off and then I flick it. If you're not getting wax all over, probably not doing it right. It's a messy thing. It's not crown and bridge. Okay, right here is where the ridge was way wider here. Like I said, you guys are going to have to bear with the autofocus. This way you kind of get to at least see, build up, gum line, cut back, smooth, the torch, gum line, smooth, break up any weird non-organic things, shelves, torch, gum line. Excuse me. Okay, we haven't given any attention to the inside, so I'm just going to put these shelves again. I'm telling you, for the processing, it's just no fun when they fall out. You want to use your tool to scrape the teeth. You don't want a bunch of wax on the back of here, because it's the same as just not doing this at all. And I don't know, you can't really see, but there's a ledge here. We're going to break. Break. So now I have to decide what to do here for this thickness. I'd like for there to be some festooning and stuff on here, but you can burn the teeth doing this also. And then doing all these, you're not digging in there. You're doing it sideways, maybe at a slight angle. You're not mining. It's not like giving a tooth cleaning. It's almost like drawing. Yes, I will go over these multiple times with less and less pressure each time, because the PK step that we're going to do comes out nicer when it just looks nice. It's like sanding, you go progressively. You just try and go for the finest one. It's either going to take you forever or it's just not going to come out right. Okay. It's probably the most technique sensitive part of it, is just learning a torch. Okay, let's see if you can't see on that, but you'll be able to see that it's kind of broken up. I would go way deeper on all these, and I'm going to end up doing more with a burr after, when I know how much I can take, especially like these interproximal areas. And then we're going to kind of go down, and then we're not going to leave a shelf on there. But this is an immediate. It's probably a good explanation of why immediates look like they do. Okay, so I heat up the PK, and then in one pass, you can do this in the torch. I like this machine. The purpose of this is it'll eliminate food traps. You'd be surprised exactly what you get in waxes if you're processing correctly. It's what you're going to get in acrylic. out enough, so I couldn't do it in one pass. You want to be able to do this in one pass when you're doing the PK. I'm using a thin side of the PK. Sometimes you can get a lot more done. On the anteriors, always use the thin one, but posteriors and lingual side, you can get away with the thicker one and do a couple teeth with it. Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna come through here later and I'm gonna thicken this up, but I wanted you to kind of get a concept of what we're working with. Um, right here in this area, you can't take enough off of this. You want to scoop these out as much as it will allow you to, and you have to take the interproximals down, obviously, as much as it'll allow you. And then there's going to be like a flat wall on the prominence of the tissue. You have to blend that from all directions, like splitting in half, split it in half, and then torch and then come back through there. Otherwise, it won't look right. We leave canine eminence, so you don't scoop out a ton. If it just looks like too like try hard and bougie, like they tried to leave a canine eminence, that also doesn't look good. So you kind of want to blend it. It should be subtle but also noticeable to anyone who's looking. So I'll come through here. A lot of times you can mess it up if you're torching it again after you do all this stuff. But yeah, I wish I had a nicer one. Maybe I'll make a better video with better camera angle and one that is a final denture. If we're going to send this to a doctor, we want to get off all this wax. It's immediate, so it's not going to the doctor, but sometimes they'll ask for call a look-see-loo, where they have the articulator on there. And in that case, the articulation, everything should look nicer. All this plaster and everything off of it. And but the final thing is on a mandrel with a cutoff wheel. Take packaging foam. I can't tell you what foam because when I find a good one, I actually save it. And I only know because I make them. So you got to try different things of foam. This one doesn't work as well. I like this white foam, but you can see you can cut it in strips, puncture a hole in the middle, put it on a mandrel, and then when you do that, let's see, are you able to see? It gets way shinier. So here we've got one festooned. It is an immediate. I'm going to have to go back through here and add some more. Um, this camera is not going to convey it, but I can see the stone color through there, so I just know it's too thin. Uh, but I will do the same thing that I did with the wax and the carving tool with the handpiece, but I'll have to hold it up to a light. And this is probably why immediates get the reputations they do, because there's just, it's a compromise, it's a temporary solution. Um, and we always want to recommend that someone, they know that these are for healing and they look good, great, but we we need to just get them into something to get them out of those teeth. You can see how the gum lines, I was able to keep these gum lines further down here, but as we get back, there was extractions that are going to be done there, and the gum line just moves in. But when you're doing this, be artistic. If you have the space, scoop out a ton. Try and think about what their mouth would have looked like before. You can use the peripheral roll, the sulcus. The deepest point is where your teeth should line up, but that's also where the gum line probably is going to come out a little bit further than that anterior, and then your curve is going to be kind of a based off that also, if you have the space. So that's pretty much it. But base plate's easier to gauge. You want to err on making a immediate thicker, and do it during finishing, because you don't want to be adding cold cure to an immediate at a later time. That's probably it. I will make another video showing a final, because everybody wants to see like the Hollywood, looks perfect, and you can't get it on cases like this. But this is realistic. This is what we see most of the times. So that's what you got, and that's what I was working on. So appreciate your time. Let me know if you have any questions.